Hi everyone, welcome to All Four Queens 555 on this Monday morning. Well, Monday morning, I say late afternoon now. I just wanted to do this one. I hope everyone's doing well. You're on a spiritual channel all about healing, awakening and spiritual warfare. Now you'll see from my channel, if you've been watching it, that I've gone through quite a lot of bullying and abuse, and I'm quite open to talk about it because I believe that we should talk about it and let everybody know, stand up and speak up. But what I tend to do on the channel as well, I do cards and I do scripture, and I know people have an issue with that, but obviously I'll take my judgment from the man himself, God himself, and my ancestors. And I don't actually say that I've specifically aligned to a faith as such, a religion as such. I just say faith and spirituality. But what I also want people to be aware of, especially when you get into warfare, because it triggers, when you awaken, it triggers a lot of people and the things that they do in the dark that they probably want to keep doing. But obviously it comes to the light, and God's all about truth and things being in the light and all about truth. And so what I tend to do is I encourage people to understand the laws in their country as well, and what we can and can't do, and just be familiar with it. And you'll see that on my channel. And one of the things about me is I've been subjected to a lot of surveillance. Now, no one's ever told me that I've been accused of anything, but I have had a lot of surveillance in my home and around, and in my car, and all sorts of things. So today's session, I want to talk around the regulation of investigative powers and the Act of 2000 RIPA, and the Investigatory Powers Act 2016 RPA, and that's in the UK. And this is about the laws around surveillancing, basically. And it says, together these acts define surveillance by state authorities, public bodies and private individuals crosses the line into illegality. State the public authority surveillance. The rules under the Investigative Powers Act 2016, sometimes called the Snoopers Charter. Police and intelligence agencies can intercept communication and monitor online activity. However, this is heavily regulated and requires strict authorisation such as a warrant from the Home Secretary. So that's quite serious and that's quite high. I mean, obviously you're talking government bodies there. The offence, surveillance conducted by public bodies without the proper lawful authorisation or outside of the defined statutory purpose, national security or serious crime prevention, is considered unlawful and can be challenged through the Investigatory Powers Tribunal. Private surveillance and harassment. The rules of dealing with a private individual, business or neighbour surveilling you. This rarely falls under the State Investigatory Powers Act. Instead, it is governed by the civil and criminal laws regarding privacy, data protection and harassment. The offence, data protection. The Information Commissioner's Office, ICO, enforces the UK GDPR, which is like protection of data, and the Data Protection Act 2018. If a business or neighbour is using CCTV or recording devices that capture your private property or movements, they comply with the data privacy laws. Harassment. If surveillance is intended to cause harm, alarm, distress or fear, it can be prosecuted as a criminal offence under the Protection from Harassment Act 1997. CCTV, phone monitoring and online or in person. When technology is put in the hands of those who abuse it, it can cause harm, distort and defame another person while blocking them with their intention to ruin, right to life, privacy, torture, intention to create illusions and crazy making. Now I've written that because I think that's sometimes what they do it for. Now we know that wherever I go, someone's always listening to me, and no one's approached me about anything. So the question is it actually a legal surveillance, or is it somebody doing it privately? And if so, what are they trying to achieve? Now, we also know that obviously whatever they've injected me with, somebody does access my thoughts and my creativity. But they're also, I noticed that sometimes they're copying things and obviously recording me without my consent, obviously, because things get repeated. Now, if I'm in prayer, for me, that's private. And if I'm having a conversation, that's private. My mobile phones are tapped because obviously people are in them all the time. You know, my laptops are, because I posted something about it this morning. But for me, my prayers are private, and any conversation I have, and my thoughts should be private, and no one should have access to any of it. So I just want to put it out there because I'm really keen for other people to understand what their laws are as well. If you ever need to invoke them, obviously I'm not giving you legal advice. I would suggest that you get, the appropriate support from a legally trained person. But just to be aware of what your rights are is important, especially when you get into spiritual warfare and you awaken, because the amount of harassment and bullying and abuse that I've experienced, and I'm just sharing my experience, and the surveillancing and the putting trackers on cars and all sorts of things, you've got to ask yourself the question, why? What is it when we want to step out of the norm and then just, everything sort of becomes condensed, and you become like a target, and you've got to ask yourself the question, why, and who's facilitating it and who's authorised it. And you'll see from some of my reports where I've actually reported it to the authorities and nothing was done. So we have to question their loyalty as well. Now, I will put a caveat on that. I don't believe everybody in authority is leaning on the corrupt side, but I do believe there are some, because obviously what I dealt with. But then we could also say some of them are affiliated members as well. And we also know from the global strategy that somebody had around my identity theft. People were involved and they were aware of it quite clearly. Because they were too busy running around trying to diagnose rather than actually use taxpayers' money to do what they're paid to do. You know what I mean? So I just think it's really important that you know what your laws are in your country, and just be familiar with them, really, especially when you get into spiritual warfare and you're a truth teller. We rely to God's law, obviously, and we have God's protection in terms of the things that we do there, and obviously keeping up our prayers and stuff. I mean, obviously it's a bit difficult for me to be doing the spiritual stuff that I was doing in my house, but I do as much as I can. And obviously I talk differently to God anyway. I'm always talking to my ancestors and to God, and in the way that I do it. But to some, they don't. And so they see that as strange, but then we don't question their behaviour, so they shouldn't question ours, should they? But then we do not judge, for you shall be judged with the same measure that you use. So, it's all relative, isn't it? But anyway, I just want to put that one out, and I would strongly suggest that people, familiar yourself with the laws in your country. And if you did need legal advice, I mean, obviously you would need to seek that. But so for me, I've just put it on there as a catalogue for my stuff as well. So, and obviously you've seen what's happened with the laptop this morning. So, it all falls into play, doesn't it? Anyway, I'm going to love yous and leave yous. Have a fantastic day and evening, and I'll see you on the next one. Sending you much love and light and lots of healing. Bye.